welcome to today's annual hosted by the Youth Economics Initiative. We're so excited to introduce our experienced alumni and learn more from them. Now I'll pass it on to Manan.
Hi everyone, I'm Manan. I'm the head event coordinator at YEI. And before we meet our panelists, here's a quick introduction to who and what YEI is. We're a 501c3 student-led economics organization that provides application-based and in-depth economics experiences to make economics education accessible for all. Our mission is to make economics education um, high quality by providing good resources and opportunities for students everywhere. And our CEO for this year is Kayla, and our CEO is Jeffrey.
With over 94 current clubs and nearly 5,000 active members, YEI is the world's largest coalition of high school economics clubs, and we pride ourselves on being the premier launchpad for aspiring economists. We do so by providing AP and IB curriculum assistance, exclusive YEI events such as Econ Bowl and Econ Olympiad, and networking opportunities. We currently have chapters across the world, and here's how you can start one at your school.
First, you can start by registering on the YEI website under Register a Club. Our team will then onboard your club and provide you with necessary guidance and resources to run your club officially and join the YEI community. Here's a brief summary for the agenda of today's event. First, we will introduce the panelists, then each of them will answer pre-planned questions, and then the floor will be open to Q&A from the audience. And finally, some closing remarks before we finish off the day.
Now let's meet our qualified panelists who will be speaking today. So first up, Sitan will introduce himself.
Yeah, nice to meet you guys, everyone. I'm a rising sophomore at NYU Stern. So a little bit about myself. At YEI, I worked for like 2 years, I think. Started off as like a sponsorship grant coordinator, um, and then transitioned to be the VP of Finance. This was back in like 2023, I think, where I worked for, yeah, 2023. Yeah, so where I worked for a year. And then I went to high school in Northborough, Massachusetts, where obviously I came down to New York to go to college at NYU. And a fun fact about me is I play badminton competitively. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Now, Chinmayi will introduce herself.
Hey, hi everyone. I'm Chinmayi. I'm also a rising sophomore at NYU Stern. I am studying finance and entrepreneurship at NYU. I was, I think, part of the YEI for like 1.5 years. Started in the flip department and then transitioned as the chief operating officer of the 2023 to 2024 school year. I went to a charter school in central New Jersey, and a fun fact about me is that I'm a twin.
And now Darion.
How's it going, guys? I graduated from UCLA this is June, so that's pretty cool. I doubled in math econ and stats there, and now I do research at the University of Michigan. It's actually really cool. It's like health economics, so it's not just like trade and stuff. I think I'm the oldest one here. So in 2020, I started in the VP of Resources, but I actually wasn't a founder. So I came in and I like usurped that position. No, because I'm just like that guy. But after winning the first Econ Bowl, they like sent out like job ads. I'm like, oh, I'm so there. I'm from Dublin, and yeah, I did win the first Econ Bowl, so that's pretty cool.
And now Saqib.
Yeah, hey everyone, I'm Saqib. I'm an incoming freshman at Stanford University and I plan on studying econ. I was the CEO this past year. Before that, I was in the flip department, just like Chinmay. I'm from Fremont, California, and a fun fact about me is that I've lived in 3 countries, 8 cities, and 10 homes. So yeah, I've moved quite a bit.
And lastly, we have Alvina.
Hi everyone, I'm Alvina Lin, and I will be an incoming freshman at UC Berkeley. I'll be studying economics, and I think I started with YEI in 2023, and I started as a marketing specialist and then VP of marketing, and then this past year I was the COO. So I'm currently in Irvine, California, and I went to Arnold Old Beckman High School. And a fun fact about me is I grew up in Taiwan, so I came here super late. I came here at like 2020, I think. Yeah, nice to meet everyone.
So that's all the panelists. We're gonna start with the questions now. So the first question is, What were your ACT/SAT scores, and how did you prepare for those tests?
And we can go in the
And
order that you were introduced.
yeah,
Yeah, so I guess if we're going to order, I'll go first. For me, I think I took that only the SAT. I got a 1560, but I took it three times. So I went from 1500 to 1530 and to 1560. And for me, like I think preparation mainly came down to, well, I was very lucky because of COVID. So I used COVID to prepare a lot. And my study plan was around like I think 120 questions a day on Khan Academy, like pretty much just bang that out. And there's a lot of like practice tests. So I think the main thing for me that worked was just doing a lot of practice questions because I was doing fine on math already. And with English, I think it's hard to specifically prepare. A lot of it is just like getting the repetitions in and noticing the patterns. Like, for example, in the writing section, usually the shortest answer is the right one, the most short and concise one, right? And like those patterns you slowly pick up and then it becomes almost like a habit for you. So I would say best way to prepare, I use like Khan Academy a lot and the Black Book also helped. Yeah.
Yeah, so I actually didn't really have a super traditional story, but we kind of got lucky with like I guess the ability to go test optional. So I did go test optional for NYU. But when I did prepare, just like Sitan said, I did do like a lot of practice tests and Khan Academy, but I did end up deciding to go test optional. But yeah.
Yeah, so I don't took the SAT. I got 1560. Uh and I kind of just like grinded Khan Academy because they got like the eight practice tests and like unlimited questions. So I think it's just repetition.
Yeah, just like Chinmayi, I also went test optional, but I guess one stat I can provide you guys is I took 10 APs in high school and I got 7.5s and 3.4s. As for how did I prepare, I guess, I mean, to be honest, I kind of just crammed quite a bit before the tests in the weeks coming up to the tests, but I get that that won't work for everyone. So just listen in class because your teachers are obviously teaching you all the material for the tests. And yeah, that's basically it.
I also can't really speak much about this because I test optional at every single school that I applied to. But honestly, I think when I took the SAT, I was like tripping most in the English section because like obviously like I didn't grow up speaking English. So I feel like a good tip for like English section is like really cram the SAT vocabs because that's what help you like contextualize everything. And then for the math section, it's just a lot of practice. And I would say like Khan Academy is also a good one.
Thank you. So for our next question, how can you handle having a below average GPA when aiming for top universities?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll go first again. I think the biggest part, like the rule of thumb is obviously the GPA is something that you can't be like, oh, I'm gonna make my XYZ super good to make up for my like really, really or for my below average GPA. Like that's not how it works. GPA is a piece of the puzzle for your university application, as with other things like ECs, um, that are recommendations. But I think a good way to generally alleviate having a below average GPA, from what I've seen, is try to talk a lot in your essays about unique things that make you yourself. And if you want, if there's extenuating circumstances, obviously mention that. But make your essays super unique. Focus on your essays. I would say less so ECs because I think I'm a firm believer that, especially in this day and age where a lot of people's extracurriculars are very diluted, right? There's a lot of ways to boost extracurriculars, especially post COVID after things went remote. Like there's a lot of ways to get remote opportunities, this, that. So the best way to really shine out and make yourself stand out when you have the below average GPA is in your essays. And I would also say letter of recommendation is a big one, right? If you have bad GPA, or a below average GPA in this case, that's fine. If your teachers still push for you strongly, then clearly you're doing something right. And that's something that's very important.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I do think that like GPA and class rank, like Sitan said, are like kind of like a piece of the puzzle. Like, I guess they're pretty important when you're applying, especially for like top universities. Um, yeah, there's like something called like a common data set. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but you basically can search up like any college's name and then like a common data set, and you can see like what like the average test score, like what kind of like like what percentage of people got like a certain score or like a GPA or something like that. So definitely look into that to kind of see like where you fall. But I think definitely like try to emphasize on any like special circumstances if you do have like a below average GPA, especially if you there is something that I guess you had to go through that kind of like impacted your grades. I would say I think like SAT or ACT, like getting a good score can kind of also help with that to show like, you're still like academically like doing well. But just kind of echoing what Sitan said, like letters of recommendation are super important. Try to get it from like someone who like you kind of have like a personal connection with in school, who can kind of vouch for you and explain things that probably you can't really talk about in your essays, or like you don't have space to talk about in your essays. So I think definitely try to like leverage on every other aspect that you possibly can to try to like, I guess, make up for it in a way. I don't want to phrase it like that, but I would say like, if you are like a sophomore or junior, like really try to just make sure that you're doing as good as you can in school, because GPA does matter.
Yeah, for sure. So I think first, like, when you look at the average GPA, you're like, dang, I'm like below that. You gotta think like, damn, like half the people get in like without this. So it's like, yeah, I'm like, so like, and I think those people are also pretty cool, and they also go to the same school, which is pretty cool. But I think as echoing what the other two people said, literally just like have a personality, like be fun, at least be interesting, but like give them something to remember, right? Because like you aren't just like numbers, and that's like ideally what the essays are for. So just like try to focus on those.
Yeah, to build off of what all the previous speakers have mentioned, what I'd say is honestly just focus on all the other aspects of your application, because nobody can be perfect in every single way. So as long as you're spiking in at least one or two different things and really excelling in those, you can possibly, cover up this one side. However, as Sitan mentioned, you can never really completely override one factor of your application. So if you're still an underclassman, maybe ninth or 10th grade, and you see that you have a couple of Bs, it's not the end of the world, because if you get all A's after that, then that also shows that you improved and you realize that you need to change something. And so that improvement also plays a factor in your admissions.
Yeah, I think being able to show the universities that you've improved, like, and you start sustaining your grades, throughout junior and senior year is super important. And I truly don't believe that like GPA is something that universities use to like filter you out. I know like a lot of people say, oh, like once they see your GPA is below average, they filter you out, but I don't think that's the case. I think if you like really have a below average GPA, you need to like focus on getting your personality out there and telling your story through all other elements of your application, because obviously you want to get yourself out there and you want to be able to let the universities not be able to say no to you even when you have like a below average GPA. So you want your other aspects to make up for it. And I think, you know, having not as good as a GPA could be a disadvantage, but at the same time, like you can make up for it.
Thank you. So now for college essays, what were some of your tips for brainstorming on essay strategy?
Yeah, like a tip, I'd say I think something I followed was you have like, was it 8 prompts, 7 prompts? Somebody can correct me, but however prompts there were, I used the prompts as almost like a guiding tool for me to like get ideas. So I wrote an essay or a draft for each of the prompts, like a very rough one, like it doesn't have to be perfect or anything, to sort of, I guess, it sparked my ideas. And then out of those drafts, I wrote some independent ones to see if there's any other ideas I have left. And then afterwards, I took a look at all of them and then found the one which I found to be the most unique. and use that one. So I think tip number one would be use the prompts to your advantage, but also be constrained by them because you have creative freedom, right? The prompts are there to sort of guide you, but you have lots of creative freedom to write whatever you want. And a second tip I would have is definitely have people who know your voice read your essays over because it's very obvious if your essay is ChatGPT or like you wrote it in a way that's like really weird. It's really obvious to a lot of people. So you should have a lot of people read it over for you, see if it's your personality bleeds through while not also not being like terribly written, and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, adding on for me, what I did is like obviously there's like so many essays, like I don't even remember how many like I wrote, but like it's gonna be a lot of like essay writing, and I think in general, like one thing I followed is like I kind of literally like sat down one day like over the summer and I just like wrote down like a bunch of things that are like valuable to me or like in my life or things that I like. I used to watch like a bunch of like YouTube videos about like how to like write essays or how do you like pick like a personal statement sort like topic and things like that. Um yeah, not sure if other people did that as well, but that's something that I did. And I think like from that kind of like exercise, I was able to kind of figure out like major themes in my application. Like I can go over a few of them. Like one of them was like culture and like learning my language and kind of like being very like I guess connected to my roots and things like that. And then there was one of them was like being a woman in business. I was in like a bunch of women in business, or like finance organizations. And then like a few other like and then like environmental advocacy. So like I just had like a few themes that I had going in my applications, in my application. So what I did was kind of just like have those and then like just like start brainstorming ideas. Like for example, for my personal statement, I wrote about cooking in my personal statement and that was just like I guess like I just wrote like a bunch of drafts, went back to ask people for advice, which I, highly recommend that you guys do. And then just like I guess across your essays, try to like build a story about like certain themes. Like obviously like every school has different prompts, but a lot of them will be similar. So like you can kind of like reuse parts of your essay, but like try to just like kind of keep those themes going across your applications, which I found useful for me specifically. But yeah.
That's a pretty good question, right? Because I think we're all individuals, so we probably think about things differently. I think for me, I was actually going through my phone and I have these voice memos that say like U Chicago 1, UCS. You guys can't actually see that, but I would just like talk to myself and then I would go on these walks and I would like talk to myself. So I think it's pretty cool too. But I don't really have an essay strategy. I just had like, at least with the UC app, I had like four fun little stories I could tell. So, because remember, you're not just like trying to tell them who you are, right? Like I assume that just gets across when you tell a story. Because I think like from I think the highest level, right? You're really trying to get across as like a person, and then you get across what you are as a person by the things you have done or the people you've spoken to. So I really think that like if you have a good story based on what you've done, I think that's like a winning essay.
So a couple of tips I would give is one, plan a timeline for when you want to have your drafts ready by. I found that without a timeline initially, it was really hard to stay on track. So in retrospect, that's something I would have done differently. I would have made a timeline for all of my essays. And another thing I want to mention is that if you aren't an avid reader already, like me, for example, I don't really read that much, to be honest. It can be hard to organize your thoughts into essays. So what I would say is if you don't already, start reading articles from, let's say, like New York Times or Wall Street Journal, or even Medium is a great place. And what that'll help you do is it'll help you learn how to write short and digestible content. And that translates into great essays.
For me, some of the tips I had is I think I started with the USC essay, and a lot of their prompts are like short answers, so it's like short and sweet, so you can really like just directly think of the answer, but then that kind of paved the foundation for my other essays and like for my other brainstorming. I think another thing is like think of yourself in the third person point of view. So like if you were a friend to yourself, like how would you describe yourself, right? Because I know a lot of people say like ask your friends, but obviously yourself, you're gonna know you better than your friends. So if you think of yourself in like a third person point of view and really um find like the traits that you want people to know and you want the college admission to know about, I think that's a good start to um like writing your essays. Another thing is I also watched a lot of YouTube videos on how to write your essay, and there's a really good video that I can probably share later. And I think I probably watched that like 30 times when I was writing my essay. So yeah, I'll share that with you guys later.
Thank you for the answers. The next question is, what type of essays were you required to write, and what topics did you choose?
Yeah, so I mean, you had your Common App essays, so your personal statement, and then obviously you had the supplements. So I mean, the supplements were just a lot of it were question specific the college asked, and I think if we were to categorize like the types, a lot of them were asking the whys, a lot of your whys, your motivation, a lot of personal questions, but then there was also more professional questions like, okay, like why are you interested in this program, etc, etc. But there was like Stanford had some fun ones I remember where like write a letter to your roommate. So there's a lot of variation in that. But for me, generally, like the topics I chose were always I tried to blend in a little bit of my personality with regardless of what type of essay it was, whether it was like super like supposed to be super formal. I always tried to have my voice like bleed out a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I kind of covered like the topics that I wrote about in the last question, but to kind of like build off of that, like for my one thing I kind of realized is like for your personal statement, it's like I know it's like super cliche, like literally like write in your own voice. Like you're gonna read so many examples like online that like some of them are like some random like I guess counselor or whoever like on Google like some random like I guess blog is gonna say like oh like these essays are like amazing and like this person got into like the best school or something like that, but like some of them you're not even gonna like and some of them you're gonna like a lot. So I guess like from like my experience, like genuinely like just try to take all the feedback with like a grain of salt. Like implement only what you really think you want to implement because like the more people you ask, the more like I guess feedback you're gonna get, which is great, but obviously just don't like blindly just implement all feedback. Like make sure you're kind of doing it in like a smart way. And like I guess really thinking through like what you want to implement back into your essays. But like I guess I can share what I wrote about for my personal statement. Yeah, I wrote about cooking. And like what I did was like I wrote it as like a recipe. So like the format was like a recipe, but it was about like cooking and it was about like I guess gender equity and like being a woman in business and things like that. So that was kind of like an interesting structure that I followed. But I would say honestly just brainstorm like things that, if you have like a nice good story that you want to share or like something interesting that happened or like specific incident, like you can literally write about anything. So just like kind of brainstorm and I just want to say like it's okay to like have to change your topic. Like a lot of people do that. It's super normal. So don't get like stressed out about like, oh, like I don't have a good statement. Like I think you'll get there and you're gonna know when like you want to submit it. So it's definitely a process, but take your time with it.
I kind of just wrote, I kind of just responded to prompts like the schools asked me to write. But I feel like the only topics I really got to choose were like the UC essays. So I really like UC essays, right? You got eight, and then you kind of got to think with like, which one can I like think about? I definitely recommend like going for like the last essay, like what do you like, what haven't you told us yet? Because I think that's like how you really get your voice across. So I think just like, I don't know, just a lot of thinking. Not too much I really offer there. You guys are, yeah, you guys should be good. Just no matter, just whatever you write, just make sure you have like a strong story. I'm a big fan of the story aspect.
Yeah, every college does have different supplemental prompts based on whatever they want to ask. For example, U Chicago has some really quirky, very long prompts. And so one common prompt though that I've seen in pretty much most colleges I've applied to is the why us and why this major. Why us being obviously, why do you want to go to this college? Almost every college asks that. And one thing I see a lot of people doing is reusing the same template for all those why us prompts because they make it very generic. You know, I want to go here. It has a great program for econ, finance, whatever it is. But what I would say is make it extremely personal. People often overlook the why us just because it's something that every college asks, but it's really important. Make it really personal to that college, very specific. Talk about certain opportunities you won't get at any other college, certain people you want to work with, etc. So that's my advice on that.
Yeah, I think I agree with what Saqib said, and I kind of started with my four UC essays, and based off of those four, I kind of extended out into different, like for the Common App, I kind of like for each school's different supplement essay, I just based it off my UC essays and kind of like extend on that. And another thing is, I think everyone needs to really do their research on the colleges. There are like a lot of different unique, identity that is connected to each college or different opportunities that connected to each college. And I think that's something that people need to take into consideration when writing these essays. Like you want to literally envision yourself in the college, and like when you're writing your essay, write as if you're like already a student there, and how would you envision yourself to be like participating in the opportunities that these essays have. I mean, these colleges offer. Yeah.
Next up, we have interviews. So what advice do you have on preparing for interviews and dealing with nerves in specific?
Yeah, I would say like so think of it as a conversation, not an interview, because that's what these are essentially. They're very conversational. Most of the ones I had, I think I had interview for Stanford, MIT, a couple more. I don't remember exactly which ones, but they were very conversational. It's like essentially somebody emails you to me and then you pick a place to meet. For me, it was at a coffee shop in Boston at like Beacon Hill. And you really just talk to each other and get to know each other. So based off of that premise, the best advice I have is don't come off as like very, very, how do I describe this? Like very stingy. Just treat it how you would approach somebody like senior to you in age and have like a nice conversation with them. And nerves is definitely normal. So for me, how I dealt with that was before like every single one of my interviews or quote unquote interviews, preparation is the best thing. Like make sure because there are some times where they're gonna ask like certain questions that you do need to know basic knowledge of. Like, for example, what do you like about the program? Tell me some stuff in the program that you like. And I think once you know that, your nerves will calm down a lot more because there's nothing better than preparation. And don't panic if they throw curveballs at you. Because my Stanford interviewer asked me something like, he was like, "Oh yeah, name me like three alumni from Stanford that you really like." And like that was that question like really got me. And so I would say if they throw curveballs at you, try to panic. A lot of the time, try not to panic. A lot of times they're just seeing how you would answer these questions that obviously are very, very difficult and out of the norm.
Yeah, those are really great points. I think I just kind of want to emphasize on that, like making it a conversation point. Like, genuinely speaking, like I'm not gonna say like don't be nervous because you're gonna be nervous because obviously you want to get into the school and like I know like I understand like I guess all of us understand like the stress of I guess like getting into your like the college you want to get into. But I would say like genuinely try to treat it as like a conversation and like I would say like stalk who like is interviewing you, like search up their LinkedIn, like search them up on Google, see what they did, like where they, went to, are they from the same state as you? I mean, and usually like they're gonna be someone who's kind of like located around you. Like the interviews I had, like for example, my Princeton one was like online, but the guy was like in New York and like He was super nice and everything, but like I guess it started off a little like like it was a little awkward, but then after that, like try to find common ground. And I think kind of like stalking who is interviewing you, like it really helps with that to try to find like, okay, are they from like the same area? Like what did they do in high school? Like me and like my interviewer, like we talked a lot about like culture and how we were both kind of like rooted in like, like doing a lot of things that like I guess being able to speak your language and like heritage and things like that. So just try to find things that you can kind of like both talk about for a while. I didn't have any in-person interviews, but do have some friends who did, and like those obviously go like I think way better because you're like able to talk face to face over a coffee. You're I guess like locking in for like a longer time, I guess if you're like sitting down as well. So if they give you an option, like definitely like don't shy away from that. Um, and I think like another thing in general is for these interviews, like building off of what Sitan said, like make sure you know, like for example, like why you want to go to the school and like ask like good questions. Like don't just say like, oh, like why did you choose like actually, I mean you can ask this question, but like why did you like choose this school over any other school? Like make sure it's genuinely like unique and like you kind of show that you care and it's not just like some like common question that like everybody asks. So yeah, and then in terms of just like make sure you send a thank you email, like that's super important. And then like kind of like emphasize like a few bullet points or like not bullet points, but like things that you kind of remember from the interview that were super helpful. And one thing I just want to say is like this whole interview thing is gonna only get like once you get on campus, like depending on the school you go to, like the club culture is gonna be like really, really big. So like when you're like trying to join clubs and like recruit for clubs, you're gonna have to do a bunch of interviews and coffee chats and things like that. So I would say like definitely like this is probably like the start of like I guess that process. So just keep that in mind and like just remember that you're gonna only get better with experience. But yeah.
Yeah, I think the previous two people also touched on that, right? But I think it's like really cool here how like all of the panelists can like talk to people. So I think just like practicing how you can like respectfully talk to people, as well as like I don't like be interesting, but like be make them curious about you, right? Because like they want to ask you some stuff and like you probably want to tell them that, right? And like be like genuinely interested in their stories, right? Like, oh, this person, they're probably like 35, 40, right? Like, oh my God, like how did you end up here, right? It's like how like what was your path, right? So I think just like having genuine interest in like the other person is like I think once you have that, everything else follows.
Yeah, to add on to all the panelists, I get that interviews can be nerve-wracking, but just remember that at the end of the day, you're just talking to another person who happened to have graduated from that college that they're interviewing for, their alumni. And there's nothing technical about the interviews. Like they're not going to ask you any math questions, any formulas. It's literally just a conversation. And once you're done with it, you'll realize that it's not nearly as bad, I guess, as you might think it is. And if anything, you actually learn quite a bit. And one more thing I want to mention is go in with questions prepared. Obviously, you want to show interest in the college, and a great way to do that is to ask insightful questions to alumni, which in this case are your interviewers.
Yeah, I want to like highlight a point that Chinmayi talked about, like choose in person if you have the option to, because my UPenn interview was like online and it was really bad. I think I literally cried after that interview because I went in and the person didn't even ask me to introduce yourself. Like typically you would expect them to have like introduce yourself and ask you a question, but he was like, oh, he talked about himself. And then he was like, do you have any questions for me? And I literally panicked. I do have questions, but it was just like I want to talk about myself as at the same time. So it was like a really but it was like my first interview, but it was like a really humbling interview. Also, I think being able to like be in person, you can read the room at least. And like if it's online, it is kind of awkward and hard to like break the ice. Another aspect is like I literally wrote a doc with like I think 14 interview like typical interview questions and I just list bullet points of how I would answer them. And honestly, like before every interview, like the night before, I would just go over them and it kind of just like it comes naturally when the interview happens. So okay, another thing is also I would say that a really good tip is to stalk your interviewer. I think for my Georgetown interview, I like stalked the person, and I apparently he was like the sailing captain at Georgetown, and I also sail. So it turns out like when we met up, it turns out we sailed at the same yacht club. So that was something that was like easily able to like connect between us. And something else is also like bring your resume, because a lot of people will ask for it, like print them out. Um, and yeah, honestly, don't be too nervous, because just think of it as like these people, they're genuinely like they're interested in you and they want to know more about you, and they're just alumni volunteers that are trying to help. So think of it like, if that calms your nerve more, like think of it as that. And I would also say quality over quantity. So you want to dive deeper into yourself, because interview is your chance to like have them know more about your personality directly. Yeah, that's all I have.
Thank you. But now for the activity section, what kind of extracurricular activities can academic students do to stand out, and how do you think they can maximize their impact with their passion projects?
Yeah, so I mean, I applied for finance at Stern, but I also applied econ to a couple places like U Chicago, a couple of the Ivies. But so to speak to econ, which I'm a little less familiar with, for me, I think the basic way to really like show you have an interest in econ, obviously you can go a couple routes, but for me, what worked was it's very basic. I basically founded the econ club at my school. Like it's a very basic thing, but it became a very fun experience. Like we really made people bond together. For example, we would go because I was the senior or junior at the time. I was the one that could drive. We would drive each other to like Dave's Hot Chicken or like some fast food chain, get food, and then we would teach economics through food or through something interesting each day or each week. And I think those little stories became good anecdotes um, that I could sprinkle throughout my essays. My teacher talked about it in my letter of rec because she was my supervisor for the club. So for me, it was just through Econ Club was a very basic way that I got to show I really liked economics. But you got to remember that it's not just opening a club. It's about opening a club, but doing memorable things in it. So for us, our memorable thing was going to get Dave's Hot Chicken and using that to teach about economics. And to answer the second part of the question, how you can maximize passion projects, I think I'm a firm believer in like action and like result, right? Your action should be something effective, interesting, and then you can speak to the results of it. So a passion project, if you're just gonna say, oh, I'm doing this, that, XYZ, it doesn't mean much. But if you're saying, oh, I'm gonna do this through this specific way, which lead to result, that's much more impactful for the admissions counselors who are reading it because they know, okay, you have an idea, you did it, and here's the result we got.
Yeah, adding on, I kind of have like two different answers to this question, but for the first part about like what ECs you can do as an econ student, I would say like from my experience, like the only like real econ kind of things are probably like the YEI, but like that, I mean the organization was econ, but my like position was more of just like a leadership overseeing type of role. And then I also did research with this professor at UMich during like I guess the summer before senior year. So I would say like one thing that I kind of leveraged is like just cold emailing a bunch of professors. Like I don't even know how many I emailed, but like if you do want to do research, I would say like cold emailing is probably like one of the best ways. It does take a while to get here back, or just like another thing is like try to see if you can get connected to a professor through someone or some like through an organization or something like that. But I guess both most of like my ECs were just like business or finance oriented in general. So I guess just like when if you're applying like econ, I mean I applied finance for NYU as well, but when you're applying econ, business, finance, like I don't know what other I guess variations they have of I guess that type of field, but like just like try to do something around like business finance or something like that. For your like passion projects. I actually had two passion projects that were completely unrelated to like business or econ or anything. Like one of them was like I like helped organize like this plogging, which is like jogging and like picking up trash. Is this like, Swedish thing in my community, and then that video got published on like my township's website. And then like I also had this like portfolio of like me singing like Indian classical music, which I did like all my life. So honestly, like your passion project can be like literally anything. But so I don't know if I can speak too much about like what econ things you can do for that, but really just show, that you're like a human, you're not a bot. Like, you have like actual things that you're interested in when you're kind of doing passion projects, because like everyone, like you don't want to just, I did have like leadership positions in school. Like I started DECA at my school and things like that, but like try to like just like build an application that shows like who you are as a person. It's not just like this person that like only has like econ or only has like business stuff on your application.
So when I was going through the slides, I thought this question was actually, I think, the most interesting question, right? Because like I think there are two parts, right? Like how do you as an econ student stand out, and how can you maximize a passion project? So first, I think so what you can do to stand out is if you guys know about the National Economics Challenge, I was actually pretty raw at economics. So we ended up taking first in California in 2019 and 2021, and we yeah we just went to the Natty for those 2 years too. So that was pretty cool. So basically, I think in order to stand out as econ, you should do econ related extracurriculars and be good at economics. I don't think like so if you're trying so actually at UCLA, economics is one of the most popular majors, right? And there's like the entire like there's a very vast ranges of people that you'll see in these majors. So there's like the econ people that want to go to like investment banking, like commercial banking, finance. Some of them want to be like project managers, right? But it kind of matters like what you do with that. So I feel like for if you're applying econ, at least at UCLA, you can apply with a bunch of other things too. So for example, it's like econ plus marketing, right? It's like econ plus finance. So basically, like there's a lot of things you can use to like spice up your application. And like going back to the second part, how do you maximize a passion project? I think for passion projects, like what really is that? So it's just kind of something you're interested in, right? So maybe you can tie it to economics somehow, but like me personally, I don't really know what passion projects are, but I know for economics admissions, right? So right now I do economic research at the University of Michigan. So if you're really trying to do research, I would actually review applications. So I think it's pretty interesting. So basically, I think she said she was doing research at the University of Michigan. So me and you twin. But second, I think that's uh it's a lot of technical skills that you need, at least in my lab. Because you need to learn like workflows, you need to learn like Git, Python, R, Stata. So there's a lot of things you need to learn, as well as just you need to be able to understand theory. So I think if you
Like
were to do like a passion project, if it's something theory oriented, I think that's so much crazier than anything applied. So definitely if you're trying to start a passion project, I would definitely do something more like theory facing.
Yeah, I would also say that definitely do some competitions if you're interested in econ. There's quite a few. Like Darren mentions, there's NEC, which is pretty big. There's also, I mean, YEI also hosts a couple throughout the year. Definitely look into those. And also join your school's econ club and try to get a leadership position there. And if you don't have one, a great opportunity is to start one. I know a couple of my friends started YEI econ clubs in their schools. So that's a great alternative as well. And as for how to maximize passion projects, obviously passion projects are going to vary for everyone. Nobody can have like the same passion project as someone else. And so what I would say is to maximize your passion project, whatever it may be, don't start it like this summer before your senior year, because that makes it obvious that you're trying to college pack. Actually have a passion in it and make sure that's consistent throughout whenever you start, whether it's 10th grade, even 11th grade is I would say is fine, but don't procrastinate it because they can definitely see through whether you genuinely have an interest in this field or if you just needed a last minute thing to put on your apps.
Yeah, I agree. I think passion project is like a long-term thing that if you work on it like and sustain your work, it's like gonna show your impact. But then another way to like maximize your passion project on your application, I would say, is to quantify it, because obviously everyone, like Sitan said, right? Like everyone does like have actions, but we want to have impact, and you want to be able to tell the impact. So you want to like quantify it, like how many people was impacted by my passion project, and like what kind of projects was able to like bring, I don't know, something to your community, but like quantify it. And then another thing is, I think recently, like colleges, they really love stuff about like financial literacy. I think that is something that kind of like extracurricular activities that can make you stand out. Um, and in general, I think just like econ competitions are important to like do the YEI econ competitions, because those are really great opportunities for you to stand out and to show like your hardcore like econ skills. For me, I kind of like also did activities around like the business or econ area. And I think I did like an accounting internship, but then I kind of related to like a bigger picture of how it's related to economics and how that like impacted me or my background. And yeah, or another thing I did was like model UN, but it's like completely unrelated to business or economics. But then I kind of talked about how my leadership skill from MUN, or like my creativity from MUN, is able to like help me build as a leader in the college or like in the business field. Yeah. So I don't think it has to be like 100% related to econ.
Thank you. But for time, we're going to move on to the timeline portion. So, what timeline would you suggest following for summers, essay writing, and submitting your application?
Yeah, for me, so I'll go over this into two steps. So what I did and then what I think should be done. So what I did was obviously COVID summer. So I spent my first 2 summers pretty much just playing badminton, training for badminton, because at the time we were like there was junior Olympic trials coming up and stuff like that, and junior nationals. But and then my junior year, went to um I went to Warren for their summer program, and then my senior summer, or this was my sophomore summer going to junior summer, and then my junior summer going to my senior summer, I focused on college apps. I think the timeline I would suggest is, I think your freshman summer, a lot of summer programs, internships or whatever are not really open to you. So I think this would be a good time for you to sort of explore your interests, see what you like, have I mean have fun with it. Like, you don't want to compromise what you love doing just for college applications. And then second summer, I think it's a good time to start what, like, if you have a passion you want to work towards, that's a good time to start sophomore summer. So for example, like Darren said, if you want to do on the National Econ Challenge, you can start prepping or something similar to that. And then junior summer is when a lot of the summer programs open. So Rise, the Warren programs, RSI, so on and so forth. So if you're into that type of thing, you can apply to that. You can also do things like internships, etc. But the junior summer going to senior summer is the one that matters the most for timelines. So for me, my timeline was before the summer started. I asked my teachers for letters of rec. So just to give them a heads up, just so they would know, because for our school at least, some teachers, they have limited spots. And then summer, I think it's a good time to finish a personal statement and yours. I would say personal statements and get started on the supplements. What I did was I emailed some colleges and asked them if the supplements would be the same. It was a good way to get in contact and also just know if the supplements are the same as last year. If they were, I would start working on the supplements. If not, I would wait till when they open. And I would say by September or October, you want to aim for
Yeah.
having your personal statement done for sure, and then good progress on your supplements. And then around that time is also when I would have my teachers read over my applications, as well as sorting out other things that need to be sorted, making sure my letters of recs are in, making sure making sure if I have resumes I want to attach, I have that ready, things like that. So then you would get to your regulars or early decision submission timeline. Then you would submit that. And then the gap between early decision and regular decision submission, so till January, I use that as a time to improve my application, look at where areas can be expanded upon, and also see if there's any changes you want to make. So, for example, for me, the changes I wanted to make was that I thought that I wanted to apply to a couple more schools. So I ended up using the coalition to apply instead of just the Common App. So you want to finish early so you give yourself some wiggle time, like 2 or 3 months early.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go over this super quickly. I think Sitan covered a lot of it. But I would say, yeah, one other thing that I did was over the summer, so this summer, like before my senior year, I like actually no, I think like in junior year, like towards the end of junior year or something like that, I made this like quick spreadsheet and then like just had like different columns for like my 10 activities in the Common App and like 5 awards. And then like I just like wrote basically just like wrote out everything that I had, and then like I had like a little separate table for like I guess extra things I had that didn't really have space. And I think it was a really good way for me to kind of figure out like kind of like a basic order of like because the way you order your activities and awards and the way you kind of like write about them in like the 50 or 100 words, I don't remember what those specifics are, but it was a good way to kind of like visualize and see. And then let's say I was applying to something because I do know like Sitan said, like a few things open up before or like towards the end of like junior year summer or something like that. So like if there were things that I still needed to hear back on, like I would just like leave it and like a little question mark. So I think that that was like a really good way for me to kind of just like visualize everything and see like what I could potentially swap out for like a better alternative. And I think that's like I would highly recommend you do that. It really worked for me. It probably like was I guess one of the best I guess strategies that I had for me personally because it really just helped me kind of like figure out what could be better and what I was happy with. And also like once you kind of write about each activity the first time, you're gonna realize that at least for me, I kind of realized like I didn't know what I was writing. Like it was not structured properly. It was like written really weirdly and like you don't really have that much space to write about everything you did. So like being able to kind of like edit that and kind of like track everything with numbers, metrics, which is super important, is also something that I would kind of recommend that you kind of like start thinking about, to quantify your results. But yeah.
Uh, so I don't know. Everyone else has like pre-planned timelines, but if you guys haven't really figured it out, I didn't really write anything for this college panel, but I feel like I'm still giving out good advice. So I think that's just me, like my approach. Because I was much just like having fun with my friends. For me, it was like COVID summer, right? So I was like on like Discord calls, like hanging out with my friends. So I think that's literally just it, right? Honestly, just like have fun while you're doing it, because like you can have like these plans, right? And it definitely works with some people, and these people are so much smarter than me. But basically, yeah, I don't know. I kind of just went for it. So like even if you do kind of just go for it, like it should work out. But definitely make a plan though. Like you're gonna be okay if you don't plan, but definitely make a plan. It's like so much less stressful.
Yeah, I guess I can speak on the summer right before senior year because I think that's the most important one, obviously, when it comes to college applications. Um, what I would say is sometime during the summer, definitely start writing your Common App personal statement because that is arguably the most important essay you'll write. And also, anytime towards like maybe second half of summer, you can also start brainstorming your early action and early decision essays because those are obviously going to be up first versus the regular decision essays, which are more towards second half of December. Um, and yeah, that's kind of the essay timeline that I use.
So I think for me, I just wrote my UC drafts, like for my UC PIQ drafts and my common app as essay like drafts by the time senior year starts. But then after that, I like mainly focused on like my EA school and like my ED school. And those like kind of helped me because I kind of just wrote 3 essays and like reused it for the rest of like my other supplements. I don't know, like for the more like school specific ones, like for example, U Chicago prompts. Obviously, those you have to like restart new ones, but then I think having 3 really solid essays that you can reuse and rotate around is really important. But I would say like build a like a spreadsheet about like all the schools that you want to apply to, all the different deadlines and like the different programs. And I also had to submit like my art supplements. So that was also something that I was working on. And to be honest, for me, it was really rough because I was not even following the timeline that I did. And I kind of just did everything last minute. Like literally the last week of 2024, I think I wrote like one school each day. And I submitted like seven schools that last week. And it was just, yeah, I don't think I'm the best person to speak on this. But make a spreadsheet.
All right. Well, thank you to the panelists for your advice on and answering the questions. We're gonna now open the floor to questions from the audience. Uh, and yeah. So, does anyone have questions for the panelists?
I can answer like some of the questions that were put into chat, I think towards like after I responded towards a couple questions.
If that would be great.
Yeah, so for the first two that I know, I think they asked me, was is 3.4 considered bad? I think GPA is like it's very dependent on the context, right? Like if your high school average is a like 3.0 and 3.4, if your valedictorian has a 3.6, then of course it's not bad. But if your high school average is like a 3.7, then a 3.4 is maybe not great. So it completely depends on the context of your school. But I would generally say like you want to aim for like above a 3.7, 3.8. But if your school is a really great deflated school, like a 3.4 would be fine. And for the you're not supposed to care about Common App personal statements. For me, like that's what a lot of people say, but for me, I had a difficult time finding an idea or like a direction to even spawn ideas. So those worked as like guiding blocks. So I don't think there's like a right or wrong. If it helps you, you can use it. If it doesn't, you don't use it.
Yeah, I can answer the second question about did you early decision to Stern, and if not, is it possible to get it? Okay. Yeah, so I did not do early decision to Stern. I did regular decision. And yeah, so sorry. If you did it, is it possible to get into NYU but not Stern? Yeah, so you can wait, okay, I remember applying to Stern specifically, but I'm not too sure if I understand the second part. But I do have like a few friends who are in like the College of Arts and Sciences. They're doing like econ and data science, something along those lines. Or like poli sci, and like you can like definitely apply and try to like transfer to Stern regardless of like what other school you're a part of. But I'm not sure if that answered your question, or maybe Sitan if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I can answer this question. So like I think what they're asking is like if you're ED to Stern, and then your second choice is like say for example like Gallatin, like for like your individualized study major. If you get into Gallatin instead of Stern, does the ED agreement still hold? Like I think that's what they're asking. Like do you still have to go to school? I'm pretty sure the answer for this is no. You don't still have to go to school if you don't get your first choice major, but you should like double check that. But I'm pretty sure the answer is no. And also at NYU, I'm pretty sure if you ED to Stern, you're not allowed to put like CAS as a second, like arts and science for econ, like as a second. I'm not too sure that might be the case, but definitely double check. I'm pretty sure the ED agreement does not hold if you get into like your non-preferred major.
Okay, I guess I have a question for Darion. You go to UCLA, so how hard is it to transfer from LNS to Anderson?
So Anderson's the grad school, right? So
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
this
So
is a
like
business school,
yeah,
right?
sorry, yeah, it's the
So,
business school. But yeah, so you can't really transfer to that. But I think like can you take classes, right? Can you take like fun grad classes? I think the answer is also no. So yeah, it's actually really weird, at least at UCLA, because we have a major called Biz Econ, right? But like there's a little to no business. Like the business part is literally just accounting. So, but the accounting's pretty cool though. You learn about like real estate, but like are there like formal business classes? No, not really. So if you were to like go to UCLA, I think, and you wanted to like actually do business, I think what I would probably do, like if I were to like say like what are you really into?
Probably accounting or in business only.
Oh, perfect. If you're trying to go into
Yeah.
like accounting, then UCLA will like lay you up for that. Like I think UCLA is one of the best schools to go to for accounting because like you'll do like econ with a minor in accounting, or you'll just do busy econ with a minor in accounting, and then they'll just lay you up for that. Like we're a really good school for accounting. Yeah, so I definitely recommend like doing that. Also, you take your accounting classes in Anderson, so it's like kind of fun. You're like, whoa, like some like 30-year-old sits here. Like I don't know, it's pretty chill. Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions from anyone?
I
There,
can answer the one in chat because or if anybody else wants it. Because okay, I can take it. So I was an international student when I applied because I I lived in the U.S. but I didn't get my green card yet, so I count as an international student, and so I did like quite a bit of research on this topic. I think being international students does make it more difficult to get into Ivy League. The multiplier is like it depends, but generally it's like 3 to 6 times harder. It also depends on where you're from, obviously. But like a common statistic that like I can give is like, for example, MIT, I'm pretty sure has like what 3 students from India like per grade, or was it like all of MIT? It's something like ridiculous. So it definitely does make it harder to get into the Ivy Leagues. I know MIT is not part of the Ivy Leagues, but like that tier of school. But it shouldn't discourage you because I've definitely seen international students at these schools, like especially like Columbia, for example, right? Pretty international friendly school. NYU is also very internationally friendly, so it will make it quite a bit harder, like 3 to 6 times. Like I won't sugarcoat anything, but doesn't mean you shouldn't go for it.
Yeah, I think I
are there
have one question as well. Yeah. What was the hardest part of the admission process for all of you? Was it the SATs or was it getting started with the essays? Which point do you think was like, if that point wasn't there, if you had to overcome it, then you probably wouldn't be in the university that you are in now?
I guess I can start with this. But if anyone wants to add on, do feel free. For me, the hardest part was probably writing the essays, especially the ones with what I consider kind of goofy prompts, because you never really write that much about yourself. In high school, you may write you may write assignments, but they're all very formatted in a very specific way that your teacher wants them to be, with the introduction, X body paragraphs, and then a conclusion. But that's not what college essays are like at all. And so it'll be very unique when you start writing those essays, and it might take a little bit of time to get used to writing in that style, writing about yourself and what you've done. But once you kind of get the gist of it, it becomes a lot easier and it becomes a natural way of writing for you.
I think for me, I'm looking at this question a little differently. So you said like what was like the hardest part in the admissions process? But I think it's like probably one of the easiest, right? At least for me, it was like choosing what I actually wanted, right? Because I came in applying everywhere as economics. But things like what did I end up as? I ended up as like math, econ, and stats, right? So I think you have to really like think about like what you want. Because when I came into college, I was like, you know what? I'd be happy. I can find all my fulfillment outside of like work, right? So I didn't really care what I did. But then you got to realize like, damn, I'm really spending like 8 hours a day doing this. I should probably like it. So I'm like, okay, what do I like? I like math, I like stats. So I think you should actually give like what you really want to do like a legitimate thought. Because basically, if you at least at UCLA, if you come into a major, like you take like, the prereqs for that, right? That kind of makes sense. But the thing is, like, if you take the wrong prereqs or like the prereqs that aren't actually what you want to do, like you get like set back a little bit. Because basically, I think I was counting because I had to submit my transcripts for some schools, and then basically I took like 7 classes I just didn't need to. So basically, just like try to find out like what you actually want.
Yeah, I kind of had the same problem. I think I was debating between like poli-sci major or econ, and kind of at the very it was kind of really hard for me because when I was writing the essay, it was all over the place. There wasn't one thing that I was honing into, and I think really like being able to commit to your best interest is like really important for like writing your essays. And I think part of the reason like I chose Berkeley at the end is because my other option was like international relations. And I just at that point I realized, oh, like I actually wanted to do econ instead of like more poli sci related stuff. And but I think that is a decision that I should have made like months ago. Yeah, so really being able to commit to your major.
Yeah, I would have to agree with Darion on this. Like, you really want to really think about what you want because there's like certain buzzwords I think for people. They're like, oh, econ, finance, math goes to quant or whatever. But like, you really want to really think about if you want to do those things or not, because you'll get to a point where I think even if you get a quant job that pays you 250K, 300K, sometimes you'll realize that you'll rather do something that gives you 100K, but you get much more freedom. You enjoy the work much more. So genuinely, don't apply to something. Don't apply to a major just because you think, oh, you'll be fine. Like, oh, you'll be fine. You'll get the major, get a job. Like, but this is a starting block of a very long journey ahead. So you wanna think quite deeply about it, and more importantly, you want to. I think for me, what I also struggled with was maintaining. I think like the right balance while applying to colleges, because when I was applying to colleges, there were like stuff that I gave up that I don't know. Like if I turn back time, I feel like maybe I would have rather spent doing that instead of applying to one extra college that I knew I would never go to.
Sounds good. I'll answer the question in chat, and for purposes of the recording, I'll read the question aloud. So the question was like, how to write research papers? Are there any good resources for the research process? So I think for research papers, like economics, it's such a broad field, right? There's like health economics, like there's macro, micro, like there's metrics, and even within every field, there's different subfields. So I think for first, if you want to find like an interest, so first find what you're interested in, right? I'm actually really into oil as well as like resources. So I think that's pretty cool. Like how is oil actually extracted from the ground, right? Like what machinery, how's that oil moved? So first like find something you're interested in, then literally just Google that or like go and Google Scholar. That plus like economics. And then just get reading. I think so. I think the sub question was also like, how do you read complex research papers? The answer is that you kind of just gotta like dive into it, right? It's if there's something you don't understand, you literally just like, okay, let me chat GPT it, right? ChatGPT is probably gonna be your best friend when you're first understanding it. Because use ChatGPT to give you definitions. Don't ask it for understanding. So for example, say you want to read like a paper on networks. You'll read about these networks like, huh, that's pretty interesting. And that's pretty sick. And then, but if you're like, whoa, okay, what exactly is like a vertex, right? Like, how are these two nodes connected? And then that's what you use GPT for. But don't like rely on things to give you understanding. Because like it's very easy to read a paper. It's like, wow, this guy like Loki may not understand what he's talking about. So I think like first, like you read to understand, right? Because that's the difference between us and like GPT. Because like we can actually process it for understanding. GPT can like regurgitate it in a really nice way. But like if you want to stand out in your applications by writing some like research paper, I definitely think you must understand the topic first. Yeah, there are also undergraduate journals if you want something slightly easier to read. So I would recommend like if you're first getting into it, read some undergraduate stuff and then go up to like the grad level and then go up to like the actual like publications.
I want to answer the question in the chat. Do you think the school's prestige will be taken into account when applying? I think yes, but that is like a minor thing. Like you don't even need to worry about that because at the end of the day, I think it's the people that makes out of the school, right? Your school doesn't define you. You're what makes up the school. So it's like it depends on the classes you're taking, like how prestigious your classes are, and that 4.0, is it all like all CP classes or are they honors or are they APs, right? That's something that you need to think about. But the prestigiousness of the school, like don't even worry about that.
Yeah, kind of wanted to add to this question. I went to like a small charter school in New Jersey and like it wasn't like a feeder school or anything. Like most of our kids ended up going to like our state school, which is Rutgers. So I would say like definitely like don't like echoing what Alvina said, like don't kind of think about like, oh, like my school isn't a feeder. Like a lot of people don't get into this school. Like I think I was like probably like maybe the first or second person to go to NYU for my school. So like it's like just like do your own thing and like don't not apply to a school because of like I guess your school's prestige, financial aid, like don't things like that you can't really control that much. Like don't really think too much about those when applying and don't like not apply because of those factors because like you never know what's gonna happen after. And you don't want to like regret it like not applying. So
And honestly, I want to even say that if you're like in not in a school that's not as prestigious, it might even be like even better for you because you have less competition and you can easily stand out, right? If you're creative enough, if you're unique. So use that as your advantage instead of like thinking it as a disadvantage.
Are there any other questions for the Q&A?
I have one more.
Okay.
Okay, so for context, I'm an international student, okay? So right now I'm an incoming junior. Now I'm deciding whether to get a counselor from outside or not because the counselor in my school doesn't really like isn't the very best and doesn't take that much interest with the students. So do you think it's possible for an international student to get into like top unis without a counselor, or you would recommend me to probably get a counselor?
I can answer this. I mean, I think I'm somewhat familiar in this. I have a couple friends that work as like counselors for this, but I think like your question has two parts. If it's possible for you to get into a top university without a counselor, and should you get a counselor? I think that depends on like. So it's your first question, yeah, it's possible. Like, um, is it hard though? Yeah, it's very hard. Like a lot of the top university, like I brought up before, MIT, like you need to be an IIM qualifier from India to really stand a chance, right? Um, there's also, I think, Caltech was it, or one of the schools also took like one or two each year. So I think that's pretty easy for you to evaluate if you look around yourself, or if you have friends that went to school in USA, you can see like what type of people get to the top unis. And if by the top universities you mean like UPenn, like for example, NYU Stern, like one of the Indian international students that's here, he was very smart. He was like the best at econ in India or something like that. I don't remember the exact detail. Now he's at like Citadel. But essentially it should be pretty obvious for you to see like the students that get into top unis I think from India especially really depends on like if they have a spike or not. Like even if you can craft a really good story, I'm a little like on the edge about if that'll get you into a top uni. And as for if a college counselor is worth it, it depends on a couple things. Is it too expensive? Right. You don't want to spend like if you don't want to spend too much money if it's very uncomfortable for your parents to support that. And two, how much do you want to go to school in the USA? Because you have other options, right? And I think three is whether or not you're confident that you can self-navigate the process or if you need a counselor. I think for a lot of people, a counselor is helpful because they can't self-navigate. But if you're someone that's really confident you can self-navigate and you have those skills, then you don't have to pay for the counselor. So it's very self-dependent. So my advice would be to look around the people that surround you. And also, if you're interested in some counseling service, like talk to them first. Don't immediately like just be like, okay, I'll pay you 10,000. Talk to them first, see if it's the right fit for you. Don't rush anything because at the end of the day, it's not going to be a make or break for you if you're a self-motivated individual, whether you have a counselor or not. the result will be similar.
Wait, just to add on, though I am Indian, I live in Ghana, which is in West Africa. So does that make a difference in the way admission officers will look at me? Would they like look at me as an Indian, or would they look at me as an Indian who lives in West Africa?
What's your citizenship?
I am Indian by passport.
Okay, so if do you have like permanent residency in West Africa?
No, not permanent resident.
Okay, so then you would count as an international student from India. So like that was the case for me. Like I didn't have permanent residence in the US, but I lived in the US, but I counted as a Chinese international student. So
Oh,
you would
okay.
still count as India. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys so much for the Q&A. And before we end today's event, we wanted to take a quick picture for our socials. So if everyone could turn on their camera and we'll take a picture. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Oh, wait 1 second. Wait, 3, 2, 1. Okay, thank you.
I'm going to be putting a feedback form in the chat and make sure to fill it out so we can improve the events going forward.
Okay, thank you so much for attending today's event, and we do hope to see you at future YEI events. And if you have any additional questions, you can reach out to us at events@theyei.org. And that's it for today's event.